I'm a 14-year-old male, and I want to go live with my brother. I want to stay far away from my toxic parents as possible, but they will not rest until they make sure that I go nowhere. I'm 14 and male, and I've been wanting to share this story for a long time. It's a long story, so please be patient. I know it might sound like a lie, but believe me, I wanted it to be more than anything. This has ruined my family, and I'm not allowed to talk because my parents want to forget what they did. So, just be safe. I'm using my friend's brother's account to be extra safe. Well, my parents had lost their partners. My father separated from my older sister Lucy's mother, currently 25 years old. My mother lost her ex-husband in a car accident, and had to care for my brother who's currently 23 years of age. And that turned them into single parents with custody of their children. The two met on the beach, and after they talked and exchanged their numbers, they started dating, and 2 years later they got married. Well, let's stop rambling and let's get to the story. It all started when I was 8 years old, and my brothers were 17 and 19. My brother was in the third year of high school, and my sister was working at a grocery store near our house. While my parents and my sister worked, I stayed with Kirby. It'll seem strange, but the best moments of my life were with Kirby. I know that a lot of older brothers don't get along with younger brothers, but that wasn't the case. I loved it with Kirby, and I loved Kirby with all his heart, and I know that he loved me too. He always took care of me. He played and studied with me, and sometimes he took the scoldings for me. Then, one day, everyone was leaving school waiting for Kirby in front of my school, because our schools were close together, so he always came to pick me up, but this time it was different. He didn't come. I stayed until 4 p.m. when my sister came to pick me up. I asked about my brother, but she didn't say a word. She just avoided the conversation, and when we got home, I was surprised by the sound of things breaking in the house, and the frightening screams of my parents. When we entered the home, the scene could not be worse. Kirby was falling to the floor as my father kicked him and threw dishes at him, and my mother screamed horrible curses at Kirby. I was so scared, and I didn't leave my sister's side, who took me upstairs and told me not to leave the room. Do not leave the room until further notice. So, I stayed there listening and crying, and I've never seen my family like that, and I can say now that I'm still afraid of them no matter how old I am. Then all of a sudden I can hear a siren, and when I get to the window I see there's 2 vehicles, and many policemen get out from there and soon enter the house. A little later I hear more screams and a voice of arrest, and I see my father and mother. They are being taken by force by the police to the vehicle. My parents screamed horrible words at my brother, saying he was a miserable worm who deserved to be hurt, and my mother was also agreeing. After they were put in the car, I went downstairs, and man, that was scary. Lucy was crying on the floor with Kirby in his arms. He was completely bloodied and full of bruises from head to toe. After that scene, I just remembered that everything was an absolute blur. I just remembered being inside an ambulance and the hospital. It was more like a dream, but my sister disagrees and says no, it was more like a nightmare. It was the worst day of my life, truly. About 3 days later, my parents were still in jail for assault and attempted murder. So my sister took a few days off to look after me. I finally plucked up the courage and asked my sister what had happened. Lucy, being the first person to ever treat me like an adult, told me the truth. Our brother Kirby had been accused of sexual assault by a girl in high school. The girl went to the screaming and bruised principal saying that Kirby had abused her, and our parents and the girl's parents were called to the school, and even the police were involved. Although Kirby's explaining to our parents that he did not do that, they wouldn't listen, and they took the girl's side. So when the police said they would investigate and run some tests, Kirby and the girl were able to go home, and then what happened happened. Now, my brother was hospitalized with the risk of having major physical problems because the beating did a lot to damage to his body. The next day, the police called my sister to the police station, and she had to take me with her, but what they revealed to us was absolutely terrifying to say the least. Apparently it's Karen, the girl who made the report, the accusation at least. And just note, Karen, if you're reading this, know that you're the most despicable person I know. And I hope you burned for eternity. You destroyed our lives. Well, seems like she's made a false report. It was a false report because she and Kirby hated each other at school, and after another fight between the two, she went to the bathroom and hurt herself and planned to say that he hit her. But then the pretty one decided to escalate it to abuse, sexually, thinking that she could expel my brother from school, but that stupid witch made a mistake. She told her friends during a video call and laughed about the situation. What she didn't count on was that everybody would turn against her. Except her best friend, who really suffered sexual abuse when she was little and no one believed her until recently. Karen's former best friend went to the police station and told the police everything, and also managed to record a little of the conversation after the little confession. The police questioned Karen for fear of being arrested. She confessed everything. She sung like a canary. My sister was more mad than I've ever seen her. She wanted to rip Karen's head off at the moment, but the police calmed her down, saying that Karen's parents would have to pay a fine for the false accusation and the slander. My sister thought it was good, but not enough, and when we got back home, we were home as soon as my sister saw them, she exploded. Said everything that happened at the police station while screaming, and they listened in silence, getting more and more surprised with each sentence. By the time my sister was done, my mom was in full-fledged tears, and mine was still paralyzed. And then he did the worst thing to that one. He asked this, "Are you sure about this?" Man, that was the worst choice of words I've ever heard. Lucy gave a long speech about how they were bad parents to believe that situation without any sort of proof whatsoever. And my dad tried to justify that the girl's words were worth a lot, but my sister was not having it by saying that without evidence her words were worthless. I know that unfortunately many people abused are called liars when not proven, but this case is different. Karen truly lied and deceived everyone for a petty reason. I hope you understand. My father was defeated after that, and for several days the house was absolutely silent. All I heard was crickets. It wasn't the same without Kirby. He was the soul of the house. He was good and kind to almost everybody. He always brought joy to us. To this day, I don't know how my parents fell so easily on Karen's lips. I hate them for that, and I'll never forgive them for what they've done. After a long time, Kirby had woken up, but only to see his poor condition. For you to have an idea, his jaw was broken. He lost 60% of vision in one eye. His arm and forearm were absolutely shattered. His ribs badly damaged, and he narrowly missed puncturing his lung. His leg was so badly damaged that he'll never walk properly again without help. And it's presented pro-traumatic stress, depression, and anxiety. My brother was never the same, to say it simply. He still feels severe pain and needs to take a lot of controlled medication. He did not speak for weeks, and when he removed the device that put his jaw in place, it didn't change much. He only spoke when we asked a question. He didn't speak when he was hungry, and many times he started crying out of nowhere, and I think it was due to the trauma. I wanted to hug him, but his wounds were so severe that it was indeed risky. Many times my parents tried to visit my brother. My mother begged, and my father wanted to force us to take them, but my sister forbade it, because she knew that the last thing my brother wanted was to see them. And she told them that, but it wasn't enough. One day, my mother couldn't visit him because of work, and my parents saw that as a good opportunity to go himself. They went in secret. I think in their mind it would be like this, and I quote, "Let's visit our son, ask apologies. He's going to accept. We'll be fine, and we'll be one big happy family again." Yeah, their serious mistake, and as soon as they entered the room, my brother gave the loudest scream I've ever heard from him. Soon, the doctors and nurses entered the room to try to calm my brother, and he said to them, Get them out of here. They're murderers. They've come to kill me. Please get them out of here." And soon after, he started crying and passed out due to stress. Of course, then my parents were expelled and forbidden to see Kirby. That is, only my sister and I were allowed to see him. My mother cried all night while my father kept putting the blame on our brother, saying that he is just exaggerating. After many more months of recovery, both physically and mentally, Kirby was placed from the hospital. My parents had the audacity to ask him to come home. However, they got this response: "I wouldn't come back to this house, even if it were the last place on earth. From now on, I am also motherless. I hope you both pay for everything you did to me." My brother moved in with his paternal grandparents, who didn't know anything until the moment and took a protective measure against our parents. He said that my sister and I were welcome to come and visit whenever I wanted, and we did. If I am sure I spent more time with them than at home with our parents. But the last straw comes now, when we find out a family party that my father had lied to our whole family about, saying that our brother dropped out of school to live in the world of drugs, and that he left home, taking his things and money that we were saving for my college. The money wasn't even earned by them. It's Kirby and Lucy who are raising money for my college, by the way. And Kirby has worked a lot of odd jobs, and now he's working and saving money because, according to him, I deserve a better future. My sister and I got so mad. We told the whole family the truth, and, well, they were incredulous and very angry with our father and mother, the only ones who stood by my paternal grandparents, who said that it was the human to her, and that my parents did nothing wrong and that they were just ashamed of what they did, but no one would listen. And they abandoned my parents to the wind, and went after Kirby to strictly apologize. Here's a little fun fact. Kirby called me the next day asking why people he hadn't spoken to in months come to apologize to him, and he didn't know why. A year after the incident, Karen's parents showed up at our door, asked if Kirby was home, and when we said no, they apologized for what happened and left. But later I found out that what they wanted was to pay his own severance to Kirby, giving him all the money that was for college and Karen's car. My brother said thanks, but I don't forgive Karen, and said he'll never forgive her, and if she ever shows up in front of him, he'll say hello, truths in her face. Her parents accepted this and left. Currently, my brother is much better, but he's not cured. He has many nightmares of that day, which lead to anxiety attacks, and it's necessary for someone to go to calm him down. I want to be there so much to help my brother, so much for me to get rid of that toxic environment we call home. So I thought I would move in with Kirby. First, I spoke to my brother. He was hesitant at first, but accepted and spoke to his grandparents, who agreed. I spoke to Lucy, and she thought it was an absolute great idea. But when I spoke to my parents, it was a completely different story. My mother burst into tears, and my father was desperate, saying that everyone had already abandoned them, and now this youngest one too? I got irritated and told them that I've already abandoned him that darn afternoon, and that he would never have me back again. My father, a man in his 50s, always said that crying was for sissies. I watched him start crying like a baby, saying that he'd already lost everything and that he didn't want to lose me too. I couldn't stand that situation, and I left the house, and I came to a friend's house to vent. My friend suddenly scolded me, saying that I should not abandon my parents like that, since his older brother, who owns this account, Steve, said he didn't know anything and told him to shut up. Steve said that his brother was someone with a weak mind, and that I should see more people's opinions. Well, he introduced me to here, and asked me to ask this question to you beautiful people. What do I do, guys? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is an absolute bombshell. There's 2 more parts to this story, and things get a heck of a lot crazier. The first opening sentence for the next update is this. Well, guys, a lot's happened since I did the last one. If you're new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one. And here is your first update, part 2. I ended up having to run away from the home because my parents forbid me from leaving the house. So I waited I waited for them to leave the house together because they're going shopping, and they never took me along because they think I'm a kid, and I'm going to be asking that they buy me a bunch of junk. But I didn't expect it. It's okay, my parents made me go with them. That was a big crap. So I thought I would just take basics and put them inside a backpack, and someone take some snacks to cover it up. As soon as we got to the market, I asked to go to the bathroom. Luckily, they were obsessed about how the price of food had gone up, that my dad just told me to go and come back soon. Plot twist. I did not come back. I ran away from the market as quick as my feet would let me go, and took the bus that came closest to Kirby's grandparents' house, and when I got it there, it was Kirby's grandmother who received her, and told me to be at ease, while Kirby and her grandfather didn't come home. When they arrived, I told everyone that it's fallen upon here, and my brother's reaction was not what I expected. He said that he was very irresponsible for running away, and it was dangerous because something could have happened to me. It may even seem to come in, but I like it when he scolds me. It shows that he cares about me, unlike our parents. I could disappear for 3 days and they wouldn't even know or miss me. That already happened, by the way, and they just got mad when they found out I had a brother. I accepted the scolding in a good way and asked if I could stay. He said this: "You will come back here even if I send you back to their house, so you just better stay." I was very happy and hugged him. His grandparents were also very happy with my brother's decision, but my joy dissipated quickly when he said that I would have to notify my parents. I protested as much as I knew how to, and said that they would come for me. But my brother said, quote, but they're responsible for you, and if you don't tell them, then they can call the police, say that I kidnapped you, and that I'm holding you hostage." So, with that new information, I called my mother. She barely answered and started screaming at me, asking me where the heck I was. When I said where I was, they got even more mad. Started screaming in some sort of alien language in a way that everyone around me could hear through the phone. I could have stood there listening to them yell at me, but I hung up when I realized that Kirby was uncomfortable with the yelling. After the aggression, he became sensitive to screaming, and he cursed my parents for what they did to him. I got angry and said that they could come and take me by force, but my brother said that they are aggressive, but not idiots. But we all know they are. And already he has a protective measure against which, if they approach, they're just going to call the police. Oh, how wrong he was. An hour and a half later, they were banging on the front door, cursing and screaming my brother for generations to come. Kirby's grandparents told them to leave, otherwise they will call the police. This made them even more mad, and they went back to banging on the door. If I wanted to go there and tell them to go away, but Kirby needed me. I needed to hold him, because, well, he wanted to go there. It shows those two in the face, and he has a lot of anger built up towards them. He even said once that he wanted to hurt them slowly and painfully. I even agree with that, but I don't think he should get his hands dirty for me. Then they broke into the door and started to destroy the house in search of me. They started to destroy the house. At that moment, I decided to go down to send them away. I was asking my brother to calm down so that I could go down there and leave them. I just want him to be safe here. Then my mother gave a scream, the loudest I'd ever heard from her, and my father had shut up. After convincing my brother to stay in the room, I went downstairs and the scene could not be more depressing. My father was slumped and shaking on the floor while my mom was over him crying and calling to him in vain. I looked at Kirby's grandparents and I saw that the grandfather was holding a taser. I think we all know what happened, right? When my mother saw me, she started screaming, "You see what they did to your father? Call the police. They must be arrested." Well, I replied, saying that if I called the police, the one who are going to be arrested would be her, for breaking the rules of the protective measure, which she ignored and continued to scream for us to call the ambulance for her husband. We ignored her, and we said that as soon as my father recovered, They were to leave and never come back. When my father was returning to his normal self, he was strangely silent. He was totally beaten and defeated. When suddenly my brother had come down and my mother immediately attacked him, which gave me this beautiful dialogue, my mother against my angry brother. She starts blaming him for everything, saying that he was the reason that all our relatives have abandoned her, that her children were turning their backs. That's when she starts to victimize herself, saying that it was just an innocent woman who will go to church every Sunday and that I was a good person who did not deserve to go through this. I don't know what she meant by that. No one would feel sorry for her just because of that. Kirby was silent throughout her skinny crisis, but then she crossed the line. She said that he was supposed to apologize to them for destroying their lives and telling everyone in the family that you have to forgive them. That was the absolute limit for old Kirby. Kirby, very angry, slapped so hard in the face, she fell to the ground. My mother starts screaming again, but Kirby told her to shut the duck up, or he's going to break her teeth on the base of the cane. He screamed a lot and all the things he'd held back all these years, about how miserable people they were, and how they dug their own graves, and how they didn't deserve to have anyone around them, and when they die, he's going to make a point to pee on top of their coffin. My mom starts to get even more angry and got up to hit Kirby, but I pushed her against the wall and she starts yelling at me too, saying I would go to heck for abandoning her, calling me a disgusting gay guy who would go to heck. Curiosity's sake, I'm bisexual, and I made the mistake of telling my parents. Surprisingly, my father was okay with it, and my mother was just mad, saying that we're all gonna go to heck and forbid me from being bisexual. She even introduced me to her daughter's friend at church. It's disgusting and makes the girls uncomfortable. The funny thing was that when I told it to my brother, he just said this: "So you give me a nephew, let's be cool." My brother started to send them away and that they should pay for the damages that they did to his house. Otherwise, that we're just going to file a complaint. My mother starts laughing at this point, saying that I wouldn't have the courage to report my own mother. I said that what I have most is courage, and that I would have the absolute satisfaction of seeing her arrested again. So she made a bunch of excuses, saying that we didn't have proof. But my brother refused her, saying that we were very much full of proof, and we have it right here and there. Because besides from fingerprint cameras, he had video evidence of what all happened. It took a little longer before she accepted her defeat, and soon they left, but my brother wanted to leave the icing on the cake. When my mother was getting in the car, Kirby shouted out this: "Hey, I wish you could just disappear in my father's place." And in response, she gave the middle finger, and got in the car screaming, which made my brother laugh, and, you know, that victory laugh after a long game of his favorite little game. Yeah, one of those laughs. Soon after, our sister called us saying that her mother had called her saying that she was attacked by our brother, and that she was supposed to bring me back home to fix me. My sister said she was very proud of me for standing up for them, and that Kirby was supposed to have broken the cane over their head. Now I'm living with my brother as I've always wanted, and it's been wonderful. He wants my custody at all costs and is threatening my parents to give in to it, for good or bad. My mother said she would not leave me with an abuser. I think she thinks the fact that I'm bisexual is because I was abused by my brother. How ridiculous is that? I think now it's just a case of wanting her to give in. I think everything will go on track for now because I had the conversation with my brother before he went to sleep. He was wondering what it would be like if his father was alive, and I replied that maybe his life would be a little better. But he replied, maybe not. If he hadn't died, maybe I wouldn't have suffered the aggression, but then I wouldn't have my two angels in my life. And he gave me a kiss on the forehead. I must admit that was sweet. I hugged him. I love him so much, and I know that he'll protect each other at all costs. Well, thank you again to everyone who supported me. I hope that no one has to suffer what we suffered, and for those who think that our story's false, believe me, I want it to be. I wanted us to be a good family that welcomes and protects itself regardless of the situation, but no. This can only happen in my dreams. See you guys. Maybe I'll update with the results of the process. So, I'll see you then. There's just overpouring amounts of support in the comment section for this one. And I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I thought that story was an absolute roller coaster. I couldn't believe that parents would do something like that to their own child, but let's read a couple comments. Hey, I just read the prior part, and holy crap, part 1. I didn't even know what to write. I'm just glad you're with your brother now. Also, gosh, it was fun reading about your dad getting tased. My sense of, I don't know, pleasure of the misery of another, in case anyone wants to know what the term means, was raging throughout the entirety of this. Guys, I'm telling you, it's just comment after comment congratulating OP for having the courage to stand up to his parents. Let me know your thoughts about this story. I know it was gory in some parts. Go ahead and drop your thoughts, or if you know another family that's done something like this, spill the beans. Let's talk about it in the comment section, guys. That's all the stories. I hope you enjoyed that multi-part story today. If you did, show a little support, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you tomorrow.